Today, subject matter expert is, as you have heard, Jason Cruz. Jason is currently the head of business development for ADA Asia's Philippine office, one of the leading voices in analytics, data, and how it impacts advertising in the Asia Pacific region. He specializes in business strategies and how brands can win on digital. Prior to ADA Asia, he served with the country's largest creative marketing solutions agency, McCann World Group Philippines. In his time there, he moved up from social media manager to become the head of digital strategy and lead for social marketing for Asia Pacific in just a little under 8 years. He has worked on nearly 150 brand campaigns so far and is the key player in some of the most culture changing work from the marketing industry. Jason is a teacher at heart and is recognized educator among his peers, clients, and students alike. Outside of social and digital marketing, Jason is a certified fitness coach and trained emergency medical responder and an avid hiker. He also has a YouTube channel called Better Today with Jason Cruz. Let's take it away, Jason.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Jed. Just want to do a quick audio check. Is my audio fine? My audio report is saying it's okay.
Yep.
Let me share my screen and we can get started. By the way, slightly nervous because when we started this whole thing, right, the attendees were like 380 people and now it's 430 guys. So welcome to this Lazada learning session. Hopefully you guys hopefully you guys learn a lot from us over the whole session. So if my screen is showing, I will put it on presentation mode. And I hope you don't mind. To save on bandwidth, I will be switching off my webcam. Okay, so today we'll discuss the why, what, how, when, and where of social content. I just have some house rules. I've been teaching in this program for about almost 7 years now. So quick rundown of my personal house rules. Number one, if you have a question, please note it down and ask it. There are no such thing as stupid questions. Number two is that try to participate in our activities and our games throughout the session. And number three, there are no stupid questions. So please ask and make your time here as worthwhile as possible. So without further ado, let's take a look at the why on social content. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about content shock. Content shock is defined as when the volume of content exceeds the limited human capacity to consume it. And I think this is one of those phenomena that all of us have experienced, but we don't really know it's happening. For example, one of my favorite statistics I've ever heard in my time in this industry is that most people will see about 1,500 to 3,000 pieces of content, advertising content, right, in a day. But how many do we really remember? And the answer is not that many. So there's definitely that content shock. And content is not supposed to be all promotional. It's a flawed way of thinking to think that every time you post a piece of content out there for the greater world, you have to sell something. No, sometimes you just have to really try and do something else with that content, whether to entertain people, to inform them, to educate them, or to just be a fun brand to be with. So it's not always about scoring a sale. And there are four main content themes that we're talking about when it comes to content. There's content that inspires, content that entertains, content that engages, and content that educates. And we'll break all of these down individually. First, let's take a look at content that inspires. We define this in the program as content that make people feel something or inspire them to take action, whether it's to share your video, plant a seed of inspiration by wanting your product or your services before even going into the sale. So you can already start thinking about, am I the kind of product or am I the kind of brand that can inspire people? Because sometimes that's one of the best ways to play the long game when it comes to selling or pushing a product or a service. You need to inspire people first. As examples, this is a fantastic example from Zork's Burgers, where they sent burgers to frontline healthcare providers, and this was not a way for them to just really sell a burger. And they could have done it with a promo, like a buy one take one, but that would not have made any sort of emotional connection between you as a burger loving fan to the brand Zarks. And this was a great way for them to stay relevant and also to build that emotional connection between them and the people that might need a little bit of uplifting. So in this case, frontliners. This is another example from Jollibee as well as Coca-Cola in terms of inspiring content. Jollibee will always be an inspiring brand in the Philippines, and this was this was no different. But the kind of graphic I thought was interesting in that they highlighted people who are frontliners, but across the whole depth and breadth of who the frontliners are. It dimensionalized of who the people are who are sacrificing for us, as well as who are dedicated to keeping us safe. This poster on the right side of your screen from Coca-Cola made its rounds around social media for being one of the more inspiring pieces of content from a very inspiring brand when they actually did remove some of their advertising budget, if not all, so that they could use it to help out needy families and also smaller retailers. So this was a public display of them wanting to be a bit more of an inspirational brand. The second content theme that we're going to talk about is content that entertains. And this is how you can show as a seller or as a brand or a product that you get your customer, that you understand them. This is where you share content that caters to the interests, the attitudes of your potential customers, and show that you understand where they're coming from, what their taste is, what they want to reshare, and just basically things that make them smile and improve their days. So if you've ever encountered a brand that just made you smile or made you laugh or just pretty much uplifted you in any way, that's definitely content that entertains. Not every piece of content needs to sell a can of sardines or make you book a ticket. This is a good way for you to develop that longer game, longer term attractiveness to people by becoming a brand that's a little bit more entertaining. Ligo over the past few months have done a fantastic job when it comes to entertaining content. But I think Cebu Pacific has always owned this equity in that they are very fun, they're very entertaining as a brand. Here's where I have a bit of a word of warning for you as a seller, right? Some brands are suited for entertainment, like Can of Sardines, a funky, funny, very millennial oriented airline, but some brands just don't work so well when it comes to entertainment. I'll give you two examples. I think if my bank and my insurance brands, right, are in the entertainment space, it's weird. It just kind of doesn't feel right as a consumer. So do take this advice or take this strategy with a grain of salt. If it doesn't make sense for your brand or your product, then it doesn't make sense. Don't try to force entertaining content into your category if it's not meant to be. Sabi nga, right? Don't force it if it's not meant to be. The third content theme that you could use in your content strategy is content that engages. And from my experience over the last 8 years, over 150 campaigns, engaging content is something that works so well for the Philippines. And for this, we mean content that starts conversations. This is where you show content like video that give people an opportunity to share their own experiences, thoughts, or ideas. These are very relatable content that triggers people to either share it, respond to it, comment, and just basically converse with the brand because of this content. This is the kind of content that builds your meaningful interaction. Again, they're not necessarily meant to sell, but they're meant to get the person that you're talking to be more involved with you. A person that does not interact with the brand or does not converse with the brand, no sort of relationship being built, it's harder to sell anything to those people. So engagement style content is what you're going for if you have a bit of a longer game that you're trying to play. So some examples of best in class engagement content. I think Jollibee is always going to be in that conversation with Kwentong Jollibee. I was very, very fortunate enough to have been part of a small part of the team back in 2017 for this. And the whole engagement strategy for this was how do we publish this content at the right time, at the right place, so that the right kind of conversations can spring out of it. And I think this campaign has been so successful at being a culture changing piece of work that it's 2020 and it's still ongoing, right? It's almost 4 years now since the very first one was published. And anytime there is a Kwentong Jollibee content, you would see thousands of comments. I'm not kidding you, like thousands of comments of Filipinos sharing their own Kwentong Jollibee. So this is encouraging for the brand because it's getting literally feedback from people on what their brand stories are. And these become inspiration for future content and future stories. And for Oppo, for example, this is about thanking their fans and considering it as one of the best smartphones. So they're showing and showcasing the kind of awards that they've won, but they're attributing this to their fans and their supporters. So even though Oppo is not necessarily the top of the line, the topmost of the phones and smartphones available for people, it definitely has a very strong and very loyal consumer base because it has never forgotten to attribute a lot of its wins and its successes to its fans, and that's what's creating a lot of engagement for them. I mean, take a look at this post, right? It's 800 shares. That's pretty hard to get for brands nowadays. Another good example lately has been Grab in terms of that engagement style content where they get people to share their Grab stories or share positive stories about the brand and teaching people how they could share these stories as well to the wider world through social media. We have an example here of one of the funniest, in my opinion at least, engagement style content. I will let Malaya play this so that you get it with the sound. So Malaya, you can feel free to take away presenter rights from me now.
Okay, Jason, everyone please stand by.
In April 2016, a small magazine ran our Chicken McSavers print ad featuring a floating fork. Somebody spotted the error and posted it on social media. His post immediately went viral. The mistake at the printers caused a lot of negative feedback. Within 24 hours, we turned the negative post into something positive by creating a fun floating fork game. In a few hours, the post raked in close to 13,000 likes, 3,000 shares and retweets, and was played more than 60,000 times. This time, people were applauding McDonald's agile response. Buzz around the fork post instantly drowned out negative chatter about the print ad. No magic was involved in the process, just agile content at work.
Awesome. So as you can see how the whole engagement content space works, right? It gets people to literally interact and engage with your brand. But aside from that, there's the final theme for content that you can use, and that's content that educates. Personally, as a content creator myself, I started out with blogging and then I became a social manager. So creating content has always been part of my work. For me, what's been very successful, if you're a brand specifically and you're encouraging people to part with their money, right? Because you're selling stuff. Content that educates is going to be really effective because you're sharing a knowledge. You're answering real world problems from people, and it can be as functional as what is the cheapest and most effective camera for new photographers, or something as emotional as what kind of food should a birthday celebrant order this weekend. So as long as you can teach people a piece of information, something that benefits their life right there and then, or maybe even for the longer term, brands that do this, they generally win the content game because your content has value. It's not just inspiring because after inspiration, what next, right? It's not just entertaining because, okay, you laugh, what next? And it's not just engagement, which could end up as vanity metrics for a lot of brands, but educational content. You're literally putting value into the minds, into the hearts of the consumer that you're talking to. So, for example, other examples again here would be informing them on how they can be safer in the store. This is educational and reassuring as well for your customers who might want to go to a physical store, or informing people where service centers are. This is educational in the sense that you are removing uncertainty and anxiousness as well from your consumer bases by telling them where they can find a particular service center if they're looking for one, right? So educational content is all about delivering a piece of information that your buyers might need eventually, or maybe even right now.